Oh, yeah, we are back and we got a tactical guest today. We got someone who's coming in hot. We're going to be talking about all things Instagram. Shannon McKinstrie is in the house, Instagram expert, top tier entrepreneur, and somebody who's got some good mojo and energy. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the great introduction. I love that.
Yeah, well, we got to get it fired up over here, right? Like,
Yes, I love it.
someone's gonna be listening to this in their car and they're gonna be like, whoo, I got that excitement going on. And then
I
they'll
love it.
listen to the tactics, right? We got to set
Yes.
the energy and the intention so that we can deliver on the value here. So let's start this thing off, okay?
All right.
We're gonna talk a lot about Instagram. So one of your things, I go to your Instagram and you have pin posts. And one of your pin
Mhm.
posts is your founder story. And it begins with
Yes.
you in a hospital with an emergency C-section and being $15,000 in debt and kind of
Yep.
your life entirely changing. Can
Mhm.
you give us, just so people know a little bit more about the backstory, can you just give us a high level overview of how you went from hospital and wondering if you were going to make it
Yeah.
to entrepreneur specializing in Instagram sales?
Yeah. So my background's actually in TV production, media, broadcasting, et cetera, behind the scenes, right? Editing, all that good stuff. That's what I wanted to do, wanted to direct, wanted to just produce news, really. Um, and then kind of fell out of love with that very quickly because it's just a different world in the broadcast news world. And then I just really struggled with what am I going to do with my life? So then I just kind of settled like, all right, I'll just do marketing and sales for the rest of my life in a cubicle, right? And that's when I had the emergency C-section with my firstborn. At the time, I was managing like the company's Facebook page. My
Wait,
nine,
I
yeah.
think your mic went in and out.
Oh,
This is the beauty of doing a live show. I hear you now, but I think it went in and out. Test, test.
just take.
And we're back. Little technical difficulties, but that's how we do it. We want to show you the real shit. So you got some real shit here. We got mics going in and out, but we are live. We're back. Shannon, continue with your story. Let's rock and roll.
Well, I tell everyone I come with technical difficulties. I'm like, I know Instagram, everything else, nah. Yeah, so that was kind of I kind of got thrown into it. I was just like, I can't go back to work. I can't leave this newborn after this traumatic event. And we had all this debt. My husband's like, you're crazy. Like, you need to go back to work. And I was just not going, I was going through it mentally very hard. And I was like, look, if I can just get some local businesses to pay me to do their Facebooks and he's like, sure, if you can at least get that, because daycare is expensive. So came up with this game plan and got some realtors to pay me to do their Facebooks, got a hair salon to pay me to do their Facebook, got, just some local businesses. I literally just ground, pulled my what was the saying? Like pulled your bootstraps, whatever. And I was charging really, really low because back then it was still kind of a fad. People were like, sure, I'll pay you like $100. I'm like, sweet. Um, and yeah, and it grew. And then I started kind of teaching little Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, little seminars at local co-working spots, real estate brokerages, because I knew they needed the most help. And I started getting clients. And then next thing I know, people actually start taking social media seriously. And then I was able to raise my prices, work, with people who had higher budgets. And then I was like, you know what? I should be growing my own account. And that's when I started posting on my own account. It was like 2017, 2018 was when I started being consistent with myself because I was like, well, shoot, if I'm doing this for them, why not do it for myself? So yeah, it was one of those typical entrepreneur thing where it kind of starts as like something you love and a hobby because you're naturally good at it. And then you're like, oh shit, I can get paid for this. Cool, let's go.
Yeah. I love that. I'm just taking some notes on that because I think that's such a important concept, right? A lot of times your story is very interesting because your back was against the rope, right? You had to find a way to figure it out. You started getting paid, but you enjoyed doing it and it was a skill set. And then you were able to transition that over time into the personal brand, which turned into your actual main business that you run today. And I think that that's a really awesome evolution of your story and kind of how you got here. And obviously, we're just scratching the surface of everything.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I wanna dig in here to the mindset around your journey
Mhm.
because you had clear, like just from the little bit that you've shared, there were
Yeah.
definitely clear moments in that where it could have gone one way or another. You could have either stopped, you could have said, I have
Yeah.
too much to do. You could have chosen a different route, but you stuck with it. And so I want to know, how has your mindset evolved from those key moments and those key evolutions of you being in the hospital to you starting to do it and talking with your husband to you getting that first client to you then starting your own brand to now you doing what you do and charging a lot more than you did previously. How's your mindset evolved over these last few years?
Definitely a whole lot more confidence. And I still struggle every day, right? Like I'll see people growing faster than me or like maybe, things like that. I try my best to keep my blinders on because, I just like every product isn't for everyone, every person isn't for everyone. But definitely the constant confidence thing. Cause when I started my business, I was like, yeah, right. Like who's gonna pay me? But again, when you're desperate, you do it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, people actually trust me. And, I remember one time I was at a networking event in DC where I'm from. And, someone asked me, what do you do? And I said, oh, I do social media marketing. And that's all I said. And a friend of mine literally pulled me aside and was like, what was that? And he was like, you need to be like, I run accounts and grow people and do that. He was like, you don't just do social media marketing. Right. So it took other people seeing my potential, I guess, for me
Yeah,
to see it. Because again, social media marketing, I think is just now getting to the point where people understand that it's worth the budget and worth respecting people's ideas. Back then it wasn't. It was like, oh, she's just an admin, she's just a girl that puts squares on the internet, right?
mm,
So that messed with my mindset too, already being someone who's full of self-doubt and stuff like that. So it's confidence wise, it's been a huge booster just in every aspect of my life. But I still definitely still struggle. But it's been amazing just to see that people actually respect marketers now, which is
for
cool.
sure. You mentioned something that I think I correlate directly to my own life as an author, right? I
Yeah.
got 4 books myself and I still have the doubts, but the biggest difference between my first book in 2016 and when I wrote my 4th book, the biggest difference when those doubts came up, I had come from a place of experience. So I had proof that it would work itself out. And
Mm,
I had the ability and know how to say, okay, this is going to come, but it doesn't get to choose what comes next. It just is
oh,
there. And I don't have to allow it to take over or control my decisions. And so I really resonate with what you're saying about how confidence plays a role. And I think when
yeah.
you can combine past experience with proof that it will work, it allows
Yep.
us to move
Ah,
forward even when the fear comes. And
I
that's a
love
powerful
that.
lesson.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there are a few things that everyone knows is that I talk really fast. I love to have a lot of fun and I ask the questions that people want the answers to. Okay. So I'm going to ask the questions that we're all been thinking about on Instagram that some people are either too fearful to ask you or some people are don't want to bother you with them. I'm going to bother you with them. So
Yes, please. I love to know what people want to know.
So here's the things, okay? And I'm putting myself in my shoes because one of our goals this year is to increase my personal brand on social media this year, and to really level that up. And Instagram is one of my main platforms. So some of these questions are directly out of my desire to learn, and some of them are questions that people ask me all the time. And I feel like I have good answers. I think you're gonna have great answers. So, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so when it comes to Instagram, there's a phrase that I hear a lot. Stories are for nurturing and feed is for discovery. Is that in 2025 time of this recording, is that how you see things? And if so, how do we leverage each of them?
Okay, so technically, yes, right? They're going to discover your page before, or your account and your content before they discover your stories. But it's funny because I actually did a thread on this the other day just out of curiosity. I was like, before you hit follow on someone's account, do you watch their stories before you make that decision?
Mm,
And I was actually surprised. It was about 50-50. I thought it'd be more like 80-20. Because I'm one of those. I'm gonna watch someone's stories. Someone goes, oh, you should go follow my friend Jake. I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll look at your stuff, look at your bio. I mean, obviously, if it's like, oh my gosh, yes. But usually I like to see if they're active in stories, what the behind the scenes of their life is like. I want to know what their world is like, not just their curated world.
So
Right.
so let me interject here as well because this
Mhm.
this is really fascinating. So you're saying that like when you go to someone's profile, your data showed about 50-50 of people before they even follow someone, they're going to look at the stories. So if you don't have stories within 24 hours that give people a glimpse into your actual life and personality, you have a chance to be missing out on that conversion. And so to think of it in a different way is like if I go to a landing page, I'm just going to, stories are going to be something that would increase my conversion metric. And in this case, the conversion is a follow. Is that,
Yes.
am I hearing you right?
Yes, absolutely. And I
Okay.
will say, because I really do think there's two types of Instagram users. There's the people like me who are literally there to connect with humans and bond with people. And then there's others that just kind of want to be more passive. So for the users like me who are like, if I'm following you, like I want to be your friend on the internet. I want there to be stories there. But then there's other users that are like, I don't give, and there were people in my thread saying, I literally don't give a crap about stories. I don't watch stories. But you can't, there's no absolutes, right? There's zero absolutes. So we all use Instagram differently. The reason we're picking up Instagram to look at it is for different reasons. So you just want to think about it that way. Is that to say if someone's not posting stories, they're not going to grow? No, because there's people out
Right.
there that don't care. But for me personally, that's how I use it. And it was really interesting to see. So while stories aren't for discoverability, oftentimes it can be the one thing that gets them to convert. But with that said, yes, what it really is the stories is there to nurture. It's to invite people in. It's like your own little reality show. What I say is like, like people do daily vlogs, right? Well, as business owners, we don't have time to do a daily vlog. Like that takes hours to edit, hours to document, right? My stories are my daily vlog. If people want to see what's going on in Shannon's day, they can go to my stories. And it's like, hey, here's what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. So for a lot of people who see the rise of personal brands, right? We know it's like we almost like went away from personal brands for a few years and now we're back.
Mm,
Use stories to do that. If you're like me, who's like, I can't edit a vlog every day. And also it's not my brand. I don't want to use stories for that. That's what they should be like. They should be like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm up to. Here's something I saw that was funny. I'll share it with you too. That sort of thing.
yeah.
That's where we feel like we're in a group chat with you is stories. So that's personal, right? But then yeah, your content, your carousels, your reels, et cetera, that's for visibility. And that's where people are going to discover your account typically. So
Okay.
I think the biggest shift that people are seeing and why they're struggling to grow is we're creating content for our current audience,
Mm,
forgetting that most people, if you want to grow, you got to create it as if they don't know you from Adam. And that is a huge shift when you're creating your content. And that's hard. It's hard for me even. I've had to check in with myself. Like, this didn't do well, Shannon. You know why? Because if someone didn't know who you are and saw this, is that going to be interesting to them? Right? Like, I
that's
think we get
good.
so comfortable with our community that we forget that, like, you got to work a little harder for the people that don't know you.
Okay, I need to ask some clarifying questions on this. I want to
Yep.
dig into this. So, related to the stories, okay, and then we'll come back to the reels and discovery because I want to dig a lot further into that. With
Okay.
the stories. So, I'm somebody, okay, I'll use myself as an example in this situation. I'm somebody I know that I need to be on Instagram. I know that Instagram converts for me, but I'm a very disciplined person. So, when I lock in to my work, I lock into my work and I don't always want to be filming it or I don't always think
Right.
about filming it, right? And then I'll be like, oh, I just did something awesome, but I'm not going to fake recreate it. Like that's not my personality. So how do you find that dance between, okay, I want to still stay focused and locked in, but I also am curious about, I want to show what I'm doing because people need that. And I
Mm.
know that in order for me to grow, they need that information. So how do you dance between the two without it being a distraction?
I think, yeah. So there's, again, also, I would say there's two types of people, right? You either need a schedule so that you stick to it because you're disciplined like that, or you're someone like me who's just like all over the place and decides what to post right before she posts it. For the people who are disciplined, I say it's almost like, time blocking. Like remind yourself, okay, by 9 a.m., I need to put a story up, whether it's my morning coffee, me on the treadmill, whatever it is, just saying, good morning, here's what I'm up to today. How, something like that, just to kind of greet your audience. So what I always say to people is, you know, we tend to fall off on stories. That first story of the day is going to get the most views, right? So you want to front load it. So if your goal is getting it, getting your book to sell today or getting someone to sign up for your program, you want that in one of the first 1 to 2 stories. So I make my first 2 to 3 stories of the day very intentional.
Mm,
And whether that's morning and then one at noon and one at one, either way, those first three, no matter what time, I'm very intentional about them. After the third, I'm like, I'll just share whatever the fudge I want to share, or like, here's my dinner, here's me, or I have a thought. I just get off of podcast with you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this cool thing came up. I got to share it, and I'll just yap until I'm done yapping. But that's what I do. So I think the main thing is to make sure at least before, and I haven't even posted on stories today because it's been one of those days, right? But I normally, at least like once the kids are, have their breakfast out the door, I'm like, that's when I put a story up. It's like a
got it.
clue in my brain. Shannon put a story up. It's my coffee. It's my whatever. I'm like, here's what I'm up to. Today's show's on in the background. and I'll use a poll. The next one is something to sell. It is
Mm,
something to say, hey guys, in case you missed it, here's my podcast, here's the link, or here, because my podcast converts too. Whatever it is, that second story is usually something to convert to my email list or to get them to watch the reel that maybe wasn't doing so well and I want to push it again,
yeah.
something like that to get numbers going. And then the third, either, I just kind of go rogue from there. So that could
Yeah.
be a good way for you to almost like every day, it's like, okay, at least you got one or two up. And then if nothing else goes up, at least we got those up and at least one should convert and one should bond and connect.
Yeah, no, this is good, and I think kind of hearing you say that it can kind of release the pressure, right?
Yeah,
Of trying to
absolutely.
do too much. It's like, look, people need to hear you. Period. Okay, and if they're gonna use your stories as a way to potentially convert to a follower, which could potentially convert to a lead, which could potentially convert to a sale, you got to give them something. And so, just doing one story, get the people going, let them know what you
Yep.
got planned for the day, and then let them know something, whether it's some form of CTA, right? That's kind of what I'm gathering from
Yeah,
you. Like
exactly.
whether you're selling something or promoting something, it's just like, give them an update on what's new in your world that they can join, right? Or not necessarily what's new, but you get the point. And I love that a lot. So let's transition into the reels and the content. You said something when you're creating content, it's not, don't always create content for your followers
Hmm.
because they're the ones that are already following you. If you want to get discovered, you need to create content for the people that don't yet know who you are. So
Exactly.
can you walk me through some of the ways that you can think about this on a broad scale? And then I'm going to actually dig in and we'll do a specific example related to this.
Yeah, I mean, so what I usually tell people to start with is like think of something you think everyone knows, because that's typically the thing that blows everyone up, right? We all think everyone knows that, and it's usually the most common knowledge thing because we aren't typically on Instagram to buckle up, lock in, and learn something really deep, right? That's more YouTube, or maybe it'll go that route. As of right now, that's where we're at. So what's something that you can get that will just really resonate with them? And shares are huge, obviously. But this is getting maybe a little too technical, but I actually created a TikTok yesterday. I might share it on Instagram because again, not everything that works on TikTok works on Instagram. But I told people like if someone's not familiar with you, what's something that you can mention that they are familiar with? That
Mm,
makes them go, oh, okay. So for me, or I'll just give an example of the one that went viral. It's a doctor, and she's in the aisle of, I think, Target, telling people what to avoid in the baby aisle, that like you don't need, like what products that a pediatrician would say, do not buy these. We're locked in because one, she's mentioned she's a pediatrician, so we trust her. Two, she's at a place that we all shop. So we are familiar. We trust her. We are in her daily experience. And I think daily experiences and perspectives are everything right now because we chat GPT, right? Google, we can go to all that stuff. What can I learn from you that I can't learn from Google or chat GPT?
yeah.
So you are holding my hand going down an aisle of Target and telling me what to buy, what not to avoid, or what to buy, etc. I trust you because you've already told me you're a pediatrician and I'm locked in because I'm familiar with the place you are at.
That
That
that's
8
that's
million views. 8 million views. And is the lighting good? No. Is the camera angle good? No. Doesn't matter. 8 million
right.
views. And she has a huge following. So it just goes to show good content's good content. And if you can figure out the things that's going to make them go, ooh, I'm interested, that's relevant to them, they'll watch. And that's tricky. That's tricky. You got to do some research to figure out what that is.
Well, you got to and you got to get reps in. Like it's
Yes.
not just, oh, let me get lucky once. It's there's a formula here, and that's why there are people that can continue to grow regularly. But
Yep.
it's got to get the repetitions in, just like
Yep.
anything, right?
Yep.
You got to post a lot of good content. You're not going to be good on the very first
No.
video. You're not going to necessarily go viral. If you go viral,
No.
congratulations. We'll do it again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so with this though, something that comes up for me when you're saying this, because I really enjoy this, is making sure that you have a balance between niche specific content and then this general content. And so obviously in the example you gave, it seemed like it made a ton of sense just all around, and it was just like the formula worked, right? When I think of content, one of the things that I've done previously is I spent so much time just being super niche so that I would just be known as this person. When I started the
Mm,
new business, that's what I did. And I just spent everything was all around these particular things. But as you're talking about this, that can be very advantageous once people are in the door, aka following and already looking. But to attract new people, they might not necessarily know why they need a book right now, but they might
Yeah.
be more interested in why their story matters, or
Mm,
how an inspirational tale of someone who overcame something then turned into a book, right? So
yes.
I'd be curious, like, what do you tell people who want to be niche specific? Should we be super niche specific? Is there a cadence like 4-to-1 niche to general or 2-to-3, whatever? Like, what is your opinion on being niche specific so that it actually serves its purpose, but also being not niche specific, so broad, to then bring in these newer eyeballs that could eventually become niche specific viewers?
Okay, so I think the best thing to do, one of the first things to do is just make sure your Instagram bio is so crystal clear of what you do, who your account is for. And that's why I have those pinned posts, right? Because I want to make sure my pinned posts show. So if, I've had well, let's be real. Every time I have this, not every time, 80% of my like viral reels that go like crazy are silly. They have nothing to do with my business. It's about something my daughter did, something about like my love of beach or of subs on the beach, right? Like I've had some of those go stupid viral, like a hangover flight. Like I've had plenty about my business go viral. That's awesome. But those go viral. They're very rogue. I call my rogue posts. I just want to post it because I like to post it. It's not niche, obviously. It's very now. Would I suggest everyone do that? No, but like also it's social media. We should be having fun. If you want to post something, post it. And I always say the best social media content, no matter what, comes from real life experiences.
Mm,
Something funny your dog did, something funny your kid did, something funny that just happened in line at in the drive-through, right? We love that stuff. Um, with that said, people fear putting up content that isn't super about their niche because they fear it's going to bring in the wrong people. No one's going to, they're going to go to your bio. I would say 98% of people are going to go to your bio before they hit follow. They're not going to just follow from a silly meme you put up, right? They're typically going to go make sure. So I always trust if I put something out like that that goes viral and starts conversations and people are loving it, they're not going to follow me unless they go, oh, and she teaches Instagram. Cool. I'd love to learn that. But as far as like pillars and niche versus generic, I I always tell people, think of the different buyer personas. We're all, just like I said, there's different Instagram users. There's people that are on Instagram, they want to learn. There's people on Instagram, they want to laugh. There's people who want to, right, feel seen and whatever. Whether you're a plumber, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a influencer, your content tells a story. It tugs at the heartstrings strings at times. We buy things because we want to be a better version of ourselves. We follow certain accounts because they make us want to be a better version of ourselves, or we follow the account because it's funny and gives us a comic relief. As far that's a long, I know I'm like going on a tangent, but it's a long way of saying like your niche doesn't only have to be like the one thing you teach. It could also be your story. It could be I have people who follow me that don't have a business and don't ever plan on using Instagram to monetize anything, but they connect with me because I'm a mom, or they connect with me over my love of whatever it is. So don't be too scared to pigeonhole yourself. And that's why I love that you said, because I give myself permission to post outside of my niche every once in a while because I want to. And I think everyone should be allowed to do that. Other people in my industry would probably say absolutely not. Right. Gary Vee even comes out and says, and this is why I love Gary Vee. He says, "Oh, he did a whole talk recently, a keynote, and I think it was in front of like electricians or something. And he was like, "You love Dancing with the Stars? Create a reel about the results and what you thought about it and something you're worked up about. In the caption, be like, oh, by the way, I'm also a blah, blah, blah in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Give me a call." Like, we connect over dumb stuff, mundane stuff. So don't think you have to only post education. Don't think you only have to post whatever it is. Post what you want to post, but have a strategy that aligns with you and what your people do. And it's always evolving, right? But I post a mix of pep talks, education, and humor. And so I don't know if that really answered the question. Sorry, it was like a long
yeah.
tangent, but I mean, I would also just tell people like just if you feel like you're forcing it, then just don't. And if being too niche down feels like you're in a box and you're trapped, then don't do it. That's how I feel. If I was too niche and I could only post one type of thing, I would go crazy.
Yeah, this is good. This is good
Okay,
stuff.
good.
I'm over here just like, okay,
Yay.
I could go here, I could go here, and I think it's interesting because I think we've kind of also evolved as buyers. I think and as
Yes.
users, like I think if I really think about this and I look at the pandemic, I think
Mm,
that that shifted a lot of narrative around it. At the end of the day, the shit's the same. Make good content and people will find it. Like do enough good content over a period of time and eventually it'll work itself out.
yes,
Eh,
agreed.
that's the same thing, but now it's really interesting because as you're talking about this, like I do think like my Instagram and the way I used it as a consumer evolved during the pandemic because I consumed a lot more on social because I had less ability to consume in real life. And
Hmm.
therefore it became, oh, this person does this and this. Okay, that's interesting to me. And so I think as you're talking about this, it kind of gives me this idea of like, okay, people have kind of shifted some of the narrative, right? And here's the other really cool thing that we're not gonna have time to get into today, but once someone follows you,
Yeah.
you have the ability to message them. And so you can ask them, did you come for this or this? And if they came for the second thing, which is your business thing, well, then great, start to qualify them. If not,
Right.
then great, hang out, have as much fun, and then it's their choice to continue or to leave. And it doesn't matter about that because you've set it up for success for yourself.
Yeah, and they become a megaphone for you. Like they don't need you, but maybe their cousin does or their friend
Yep.
does. I can't tell you how many people are like, "Oh, so and so told me to follow you," and I'm like, "Who?" Like, so we connect on all sorts of different things, and if you,
Cool.
like you said, if you put out good content and you engage your people and you care, they're going to stick around and they're going to spread the word about you too.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I got some rapid fire questions here.
Okay.
We're going to finish up with some very, very fast, quick questions, quick
Okay.
answers. Move on to the next one. I'm going to come up with these as we go. I got a couple that I
Okay.
prepared and a couple that I'm just going to wing based on your response. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. What are the three metrics you are most focused on tracking?
Engagement rate number one. Which, again, I don't want to give a blanketed engagement rate, but it's usually around 4 to 5%. It depends on your follower count. So make sure your engagement rate, and I think people are usually shocked by that. They're like, "Oh my gosh, my engagement rate is actually 10%." I'm like, "Well,
How do
then
you
good."
calculate that? How do you calculate that?
It's followers, number of followers based on typically likes is what we look at most. But if you go to if you literally just Google later.com engagement rate calculator, like there's one up there. You can figure it out. I think it's later. Flanks has one too, PHLANX. And you'll see again, the more followers, the less that percentage is. So engagement rate, because that's all Instagram gives a crap about. That is literally all they care about is the engagement. And they calculate that with a lot of other things we don't see, saves, things like that. But overall engagement, likes and comments, if you've got 100,000 followers, but you're only getting 100 likes, that's alarming, right? So things like
Okay, follow up question. I said rapid fire. We're changing that for a second.
that.
Rapid fire B is if your engagement rate is low, what's the number one thing you can do to fix your engagement rate on account that you already have?
uh like you said, create better content. And that takes a lot of market research. And so a lot of studying what's working now. Because every time I work with someone, I'm like, no, your content is good. It needs to be tailored to what's working now. It's the same message. Your messaging is the same. Your tip is the same. Look at what reels are going viral. How can you reverse engineer the way the formula is and the copy and things like that? I think talking to the camera is huge right now because we're just sick of the gimmicks and things like that. Uh, and of course, engaging back. It does not hurt to get social. I tell everyone, I'm like, there's a reason I go every time the head of Instagram posts on Instagram, there's a reason I go comment on it. Right. Because if people are listening to him, they should be listening to me too. He's probably not going to answer you. I will. So I'm in those comments.
Mm.
Not answering people, I'm just leaving a comment. So again, what I always say to people is like a good way to help. I'm like, okay, everyone knows the home edit girls, right? They've blown up because of social media. Well, if you're a home organizer, every time they post, you should go comment on their posts because they can't get to everyone. And your comment saying, "Oh my gosh, and I love the way da 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 da," someone's gonna see that and be like, "Wow, this person knows what they're talking about." They're gonna check out your profile, and then I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a client or a new follower because of a comment I've left.
Mm.
So don't just be social because we should be social. It is social media, but also think of the places you should be commenting on. I always tell the real estate agents, comment on the local coffee shop, comment on the local yoga studio, comment on the local bloggers that everyone's obsessed with. Because guess what? They're in the comment section. We live in the comment section. So it's another great way to get your engagement up. Comment, socialize, make sure to reply back to people,
Love it.
and just create better content. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Engagement rate's the most important thing. And of course, I always look at reach. non-followers compared to followers. Because again, but it comes to your goals, right? So if your goal is to get more followers and your content is only going out to like 5% of non-followers, you got to figure out what content will get to
Yeah.
non-followers. Um,
I resonate with this. The niche
good.
specific content,
Yeah.
less engagement, much, much, much lower engagement rate
Yep.
than non-niche specific content. I can tell immediately the difference there. And what's funny though is the people that end up being customers, they've all watched the niche specific content, even if they didn't
Hmm.
engage or anything. But they're like, I've been watching your content for a while because now I've piqued their interest. But it's about getting those people in the door first, and to do that, you need the better content, which leads to the better engagement rate, which then can lead to the funnel stuff, right? So if you're listening to this
1,000%.
episode, it's following. There's a pattern here. There's a very
There
clear
is.
pattern. There's a
Yeah.
formula. It's not random, and that's what you do. So a couple more questions here. I'm going to do my job of keeping them short and quick. How often are you tracking metrics via Instagram for growth?
Not much actually.
Okay.
But I would say because I'm on a really good steady, like I feel good about things right now. But when I'm not, but see, I'm also one of those, I've never had rapid growth. I just kind of steady climb up a hill. But if I notice a decline, the first thing I do is dive into viral reels. Like what is going crazy and how can I, again, reverse engineer it and tailor it to and it won't be viral reels in my field. No, I will not look at content in my field. I'll look at like, okay, a brewery went viral. What was it? What was the wording? What happened? A home organizer's reel went crazy. What was it? Right. And you can take those little formulas that they do. And I also go to TikTok for inspiration a lot of times too, for like really good verbal hooks that people over
Right.
there really, but if you go to TikTok, it looks like Instagram stories. Like everyone's just picking up the phone randomly and going blah 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 blah, right? It's very like, so it's just interesting. I feel like we're going away from the curated perfect type of thing and we just want real raw. So just study because you're already looking at the app and saving and sharing. Go look at this the thing you sent your spouse earlier, and obviously I know people are gonna go, oh, well, it's always funny stuff and I'm not funny. Okay, well then start training your algorithm, start showing you other content so that you can make sure that you're seeing what's doing well in other industries too.
Yeah, that's good stuff. This whole episode's been great stuff.
Oh,
Shannon,
thanks.
people are going to want to know a little bit more about you and where they can go. How do we follow you? How do we work with you? Tell us where to go. Give us the goods.
Yeah, I mean, just Shannon McKinstrie on Instagram. I'm on there chronically, on there more than I should be. That's the best place to get in touch with me. My website is also shannonmckinstrie.com. I have a podcast called Good Content. I literally do that every week. I go through viral reels and talk about why one went viral so that you can go and take it. I literally get DMs every week. Someone saying I took it and went viral. I'm like, there you go. So the tips I share are free and you can take them and run with them every week.
All right, there we go. I want the first person to go viral from this episode to tag us.
Yes.
Let us know. Let's hype you up. We'll hype you up.
Great.
Okay, so that's amazing. We'll get that all linked up here. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I've had a great time asking you questions that I've really wanted to know, and that I know people always want to know these questions as well. So thank you for showing up here and answering and keeping up with the pace.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was a great time.
Awesome. So everybody, that was Shannon McKinstrie. Make sure to go check her out. Check out her website. We got it all linked below. But here's the thing. We're going to end this with a challenge. Now, we talked about a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here. Here's what I want you to do. My challenge is pick the one thing that resonated with you the most related to Instagram and take action on that. Okay? Whether that was, oh, I'm going to take a story in the morning and I'm going to do that. And then my second one's going to be some form of call to action story. Great. Do that today. Tag us, hide the tag. We want to support you. We want to root you on. If for you, it's like, you know what? My metrics are all off. Something's going off. Check your engagement rates. Use the tools that Shannon mentioned. Okay. Whatever it is, that is the challenge of this episode. Find one thing that resonated with you, take action on the tactical side of things, and make some magic happen, folks. That's what I got for you today. And I'll see you on the next one.